Welcome to the Ancient Coin Podcast with Aaron Berk, a show about ancient coins from the viewpoint of a seasoned professional with nearly 30 years' experience. Here's Aaron Berk and Mike Nodelman on the Ancient Coin Podcast.
And once again, the sound of the gong means it is time for the Ancient Coin Podcast. I am your host and humble narrator, Mike Nodelman.
And I'm Aaron Berk.
And tonight on our 20th episode of the Ancient Coin Podcast, I still haven't figured out everything about ancients yet, so we're going to continue on this journey. And to prove that, Aaron is going to play a game with me. We're going to talk about some of the coolest things in the world of auctions, right? Some of the things that you've got going on and some of the things that are coming up.
That's true.
And we have a little pearl of wisdom for our bag. So why don't we get started right away with the auction card? And
yeah, I'll make one comment about past auctions. We had two major ones which we profiled on earlier shows, and that was the NAC and Nomos auctions, which were this past Sunday and Monday. I believe, in my opinion, Nomos was decent. I wouldn't say the prices were crazy, but they were they had strength. And just to give you an example, I think I was bidding on 7 or 8 lots for some clients, and I got them all except for one. So that's a little unusual to always, be able to
go
get that
7
many.
for 8 is that's more than just luck.
Right. And but then the NAC sale, that changed everything. So NAC is kind of an anomaly in itself. They get prices that nobody else gets. They get, but they also have coins that no one else has. So there's that to be said. That's the auction house that had the gold Eidmar that I bought. So they are the premier auction house in the world for ancient coins. No one is better than them. I mean, there's every once in a while you do get an auction house that has a nice collection, but consistently auction after auction, they have some of the best coins always. Their auction was, in my determination, a bloodbath.
Oh.
I was
so lots of high prices for coins.
Yeah, but they were all a lot of rare coins, extremely rare coins, and it only takes a couple of very wealthy 1%ers to, you could say they overpaid, or you can say they just bought unique coins at really, really, really strong prices.
Yeah, they really wanted to win them.
Mm-hmm. So it's not a, none of these coins in both Nomos or NAC are slabbed. So they don't play the slabbing game. They are naturalists like the rest of us in the ancient market. They don't try to profit off of stars or high rankings of NGC. They make money on the actual rarity and quality of the coins themselves. And none of that star crap comes into play at all. And so I would say, I did okay, but I didn't do that. I didn't do stellar, but I did end up buying the Constantine the Great medallion that we talked about in the last show, and for a good amount of money. But it's a unique thing. They're all kind of unique, but I think in general, if somebody was asking me how the market is, I'd say the market is still strong, and it's softened in some places. But even our last buyer bid sale closing, we did well. And we had a lot of inexpensive coins under $200, and we're still selling them. So there's still people out there who are buying coins. And so the idea of inflation and the market crashing hasn't really come about yet.
It hasn't materialized. Yeah.
No.
I have a question to ask without trying to derail everything too much. So with the recent announcement at NGC that they were going to start using on modern coins a 10-point grading scale for some of those, do you see an opportunity for NGC to maybe bring that over to Ancients and fix some of the problems that they've had with grading and the market there, and make themselves more relevant?
They came up with their own unique system with the surface and with surface and grade rankings, and so I don't see that changing anytime soon. And they would say, if it's not broke, why should I fix it? And so,
well, it doesn't seem like the market, because of their lack of guarantee of authenticity, things like that, that I would just see this as maybe an opportunity to kind of fix some things that, might be.
well, grading, in my opinion, has always been subjective. So anybody paying extra for a star is really being short-sighted because just the opinion of one company doesn't translate throughout the rest of the market. And so I think really what NGC should do is they should guarantee coins. And there's no reason for them not to. The fact that they charge the most in the industry, we talked about this, when it comes to the value of the high valued coins, they charge 2% of the value of the coin. None of the other areas do this. PCGS doesn't do this. Ancients is the most expensive. They charge the most money, but they have the least guarantee. And so
yeah, you're paying the most and getting the least.
Yeah, so they're profiting huge, and they don't have any chance of loss, and meaning they don't have any skin in the game. And I can understand not wanting to lose out on a $500,000 piece, and I'm sure they got burned once, and that's why they don't want to do it. But there's no reason why they can't guarantee anything under $25,000. And they can easily pay for that. And I can probably be pretty certain they wouldn't have a lot of coins come back as being fake anyway. And so, it's pretty tough once it gets into that holder for people to challenge it. And if you crack it out of the holder, then they can say it was tampered with.
Yeah, you've lost the grade.
Yeah. Well, the grade, yeah, but I guess you could say, well, they authenticated it and it's the same coin, but the fact that it's out of the holder at that point, that draws some questions.
Right.
So if I see any place for NGC to make improvements, it would be to do a guarantee and to actually have some skin in the game and to legitimize themselves by their namesake, which is Numismatic Guaranteed Corp.
Right. It guarantees in their name. It's just one of those things. Like I said, I didn't want to derail things too much, but I just wanted to ask the question because
I talk about this. I talk about this constantly with clients, and look, NGC has done some really great things for the ancient market. Some of the auction houses have capitalized big time off of those designations. Clients that own those coins have done really, really well. But again, if you don't get that 5555 or a star designation, you're not going to get those ridiculous prices. So it's coming down to the upper 1% or 0.5% of coins that they grade that actually get those designations that are going to get you that big lottery ticket win, off of the plastic. And so and I don't, what I've seen in the last 2 years is companies like Heritage and Stacks, mostly Heritage had some really amazing collections. And now it seems like they're not getting the same kinds of coins that they were getting because a lot of the other auction houses that sell raw coins are getting really ridiculous and very strong prices for their coins. And so the plastic really doesn't mean anything anymore. It's almost kind of a joke. So like when you see a starred coins in one of the like C&G sales or whatever, and you see the price go crazy, you realize that it's just an idiot who doesn't know what they're doing buying the coin.
Well,
and so and I shouldn't say idiot, but I say idiot because they could buy
in a loving way.
Well, just not understanding the market. The rest of us dealers look at that and we stay away from those coins because we realize that those clients are going to way overpay for the coins and it doesn't make any sense. And the coins that a lot of the companies that live and die by the slab, they typically are only going to get specific types of coins. Like I can tell you the Chinese are only buying certain types of tetradrachms, mostly Greek silver, very little gold. They will buy Greek gold, but they're not buying Roman, a little bit, but not much. But what they want is they want silver tetradrachms from certain cities, and it has to have a high designation. And that's what's selling in China. And so that's the stuff that Heritage does well with, Stax does well with. And some of the other companies that are only selling it based on the plastic. But if you have something that is obscure or different and it doesn't have a high designation, they're not going to get the prices. So you're better off at that point going to a normal auction house that doesn't put a
huge
premium,
yeah.
a premium on plastic, and actually sell to sophisticated buyers.
Well, at that point, you may also be better off just selling it raw.
Well, of course, it's better off selling it raw.
Yeah.
And so, and I know I've talked to some of the dealers that deal only in plastic ancients, and they're getting sick of it because they see that there's a lot of inconsistency at NGC with the grading. They don't understand some of the stuff that comes out, why some of it's starred, why some of it's not. And so again, I wouldn't get mad about it because I'd say, well, it's subjective.
And that's kind of where I come down on it is how can you possibly be upset about something that really, at the end of the day, shouldn't have an impact?
Right. And let me take it a step further and say that in the U.S. market, where you have very tight regulations and you have a very tight-knit production period where we know everything that was minted and we know there's nothing that's unknown about U.S. coins, right? I mean, we have the PCGS numbering system, right? That it's standardized. Everybody uses it. You don't have that for ancient coins. But even in U.S. coins now, they're about ready to have a new grading service because the grading services that are now around PCGS and NGC have been considered to be laxed in their grading because that they are trying to profit from the new owners that own those companies. And so if they can't get it right in an area where it's so closely regulated and where the whole market accepts it, how are they going to do it in ancient coins?
Fair point.
So I just, you see the problems that I see. And then the fact that NGC doesn't guarantee it, it just makes it even worse, in my opinion. So
it just makes me wonder why they're involved. I mean, if they're not going to guarantee, I know why from their I know from their standpoint why, but I just don't understand why the market puts value in it when at the end of the day, they have no dog in the fight. They have no skin in the game.
Right. I mean, it's a good service for people that feel comfortable with the slabs and they want to have a third-party grading service authenticate their coins. But again, you're better off buying it raw and sending it in than buying it in the slab.
Well, what that comes down to, though, is that you have to know the coin. And this is, I think, where see, now you're going to get me going on a grading services or as a scourge of the hobby, because actually they promote laziness. They really do. They do some of the work for people, and so they don't feel compelled to figure it out for themselves, to be able to look at it, to be able to know it. I have people that walk into the shop every day that ask me, well, how do you know that this isn't real? Well, it's like one of my kids. You're not going to sneak one of the neighbor kids in on me. I know them. I know what they should look like.
Right. Well, and the same thing with us. We don't sell anything that we don't guarantee for life. Mm-hmm. And I can tell you from my experiences with other auction houses in other areas besides coins, they don't give a lifetime guarantee. If you go to Sotheby's or Christie's, I think it's like maybe 3 years, maybe it's 2 years that they give the guarantee, and then it goes away. So you spend $100 million on a painting at Sotheby's and 10 years goes by and they determine later it's fake, you're out.
Yeah, you go to sell it. You go to sell it, and when you go to sell it, they figure, oh, no, this isn't so good.
They do not stand behind it. And so it's very unusual to get in this industry to have most of the ancient players. I think it's true of all coin dealers. Everybody guarantees what they sell, right? If we sell fake, we stand behind it, right? And so if we do that, why can't the grading service do it? And they do it for everything except for ancient coins.
Right.
So again, I think that it doesn't bode well for the ancient market as a whole, because if NGC can say, we're creating a service where we're giving an opinion and hopefully vetting authentic coins, and making sure people don't buy fakes, and we're putting a standardized grading on it, but we're not going to stand behind the authenticity, that's not necessarily making people feel comfortable about collecting ancient coins.
No,
right?
because the grading itself is subjective. So if you're not guaranteeing at least the authenticity of the coin, you're not really helping a whole lot.
My point is that when somebody comes to me and they say, do you guarantee this is real? I say, yeah, I guarantee it for life. But then when you buy something in an NGC holder and you go to the NGC website and it says it's not guaranteed to be,
Right.
We don't guarantee the authenticity, that puts doubt that all ancient coins have a possibility of coming back fake, and that their experts don't even feel comfortable enough to stand behind their authenticity, or the fact that they feel comfortable putting it in the slab. They should just say, we guarantee it, and really solidify the fact that they're a service that is there to protect people 100%. And when you put doubt in people's mind in any capacity, I think that is not healthy for any market.
I still like your comment earlier of their middle name is guarantee. But we've gotten completely sidetracked on this, and I'm sorry. So
that's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. So anyway, that's the market as a whole. Auctions that I noticed that were coming up one is the Loy numismatic auction. It's mostly an e-sale again, but it's 5,370 lots over 3 days, December 3rd through the 6th. And I picked just a couple of interesting coins that I thought come up often. Mike, if you bring up lot 80, if you haven't done that already.
Yep, got it.
Okay. So here we have a coin of Lydia. This is kind of close to the beginning of coinage. This is an electrum coin, which is a gold silver alloyed mix. We've talked about electrum coins, the fact that they actually would debase the gold using silver. And there's different variety amounts of silver that are added to these coins to lighten the gold. And they did this purposely. And so on these smaller denominations, this is very small hectare, it only weighs 4.7 grams. You typically have a lion on these, which is a very powerful, obviously, strength god. And a lot of people used to think that the thing above its eye was a nose wart, but really what it is, it's a sunburst. And
that makes way more sense.
And some people will argue, I've heard even people argue that maybe the king or satrap or leaders of the time had a wart, and so that they were portraying the wart of the emperor. But I believe this is a sunburst, and that during this time they were they wanted the Babylonian sun god to worship over them, and so it makes sense to not only use the power of the lion, but also have this sun god over him as well. And so that makes the most sense.
That does make the most sense. And then the incuse on the back, because this is really super early coinage.
It is. And so a lot of these early ones will have the incuse. These have been going for really stupid prices, minimum, $1,500 to $2,000 and up, depending how nice. If it's really nice, they go for $4,000 or $5,000. This one's worn, but what's really nice is that even though it's worn, the sunburst is really strong, and the quality is okay for what it is. And their starting bid at 250 Swiss francs is very inexpensive. And so again, we talk about buying inexpensive coins, and when you can look at a coin that typically goes for crazy money, what are you willing to lose? And then if you're willing to lose something, in this case, it's going to be the strike, the strength of the strike, and also the wear, but you still have a lot of the quality of the characteristics of the aesthetics there and the artwork. And so if you can get this coin for, under 800 euros, that's a great deal. And it's a great representative of a coin that's very difficult to get for a lot of people, because a lot of people don't have $2,000 or more to spend. And so I picked this for that reason, because I thought that it encompasses what we're looking for when it comes to buying ancient coins at reasonable prices.
This particular this particular specimen has everything you really want in this coin. If you,
Correct.
are willing to accept a circulated worn coin, it still has everything as far as the artwork. So yeah, absolutely. This is a good one.
Yeah. I mean, I had a port of Ostia from Nero. We've talked about port of Ostia before in my last buyer bid sale catalog that was extremely worn. And I think I had it at like $1,500 or $1,600. I mean, those are normally 30,000 plus price coins. So to buy a port of Ostia for under $2,000 is really very difficult to do. And so I picked it up. Actually, I bought it from C&G. I think I paid about $1,000 or $1,100 for it, which I thought was inexpensive. So I wasn't trying to make a ton of money. But the reason I bought it was that I thought it was going inexpensive, and I wanted to be able to have a coin that most people could never afford, but would have the opportunity to buy a coin just because it was worn. And so I think when we're from a dealer standpoint, like myself, it's always great to be able to have famous coins in worn condition so that your normal buyers can afford to buy it. And so,
Bring
so
the
I try
everyman
to,
along too.
what's that?
Bring the everyman along too.
Well, I find that it's always great to be able to serve all clients, and so some people have said, "Oh, you only care about high worth value clients." I'm like, well, they have their place, right? But also to be able to pick up, most dealers will try to always pick up that rare worn coin if it's priced properly, just so they can provide that rarity to a client who can't afford the high end coin.
I want to say that I also think that it's kind of a disservice to say that we don't care about the lower end coins. Actually, the fact of the matter is that, look, we get excited about the higher end coins. That's what happens. It's like we deal with a lot of the lower end coins and we show them just as much love every single day. It's just that we don't see this stuff very often. And so that's why you get a little, wow, that's kind of cool.
Well, we talked about this at the beginning, when I was talking about collecting ancient coins and developing your eye for great art. It takes years to develop a proper eye for it. And so for my eye, that's been, obviously, I'm a professional and I've been doing this for 30 plus years. And so what's going to get me excited is only going to be the best of the best. Otherwise it doesn't get me that excited.
And there's a lot to be gleaned from that for a person even like me.
Right. Well, I think that, we don't, and we've talked about this, we don't go to museums and try to find the bottom end of their collection. In fact, you won't even find that out on display. The museums are going to put that stuff out. It's going to be stuck in their back rooms and it's only there for study. And so the only things you're going to see out on display at any museum is the best of the best. And so when somebody asks me to talk about coins and I have the opportunity to show them, even if they can't afford it, but I have the opportunity to show them what the best looks like because I'm passionate and excited about it, I'm going to show it to them, for the same reason why a museum would charge you tickets to go in and view their best. So anyway, moving on to lot 1648.
Ptolemaic kings of Egypt.
So we've talked about Ptolemy the First before. He was one of the generals of Alexander the Great. And here, Ptolemy's kind of taking a page from Alexander by putting his portrait on here, or putting Alexander's portrait on here. And so instead of using a lion head, he uses a elephant headdress. So it's similar in the same way, but a little different. And you have Athena on the reverse. And here, this was issued between 323 and 305 BC. So Alexander died in 323 BC. So this is right at the end of his death. This is where Ptolemy then goes to Egypt and takes over Egypt and Alexandria and starts minting coins with Alexander's likeliness on it. And later, they then come out with the Ptolemaic coinage that goes from there going forward, which is more going to be the Zeus and the line on the thunderbolt, which is more common, and some of the Ptolemaic queens and things like that. But when Ptolemy first goes to Egypt, he's issuing coins with Alexander's portrait on them.
I'm looking at the elephant head, trying to kind of put my head on that one, but okay.
Well, look at the ear behind. You can see how it's very much more like an elephant flap.
Yes.
And then if you look at the very top, you'll see the little swirl that goes up. That's the part of the trunk going up.
Okay.
So
That's kind of a stretch, but okay.
It's when looking. I learned this with antiquities. There's a lot of stylizations that happen
Yeah.
in work, and so you have to sometimes look past the reality to find the imagery.
And there's also artistic limitations and limitations of your venue, right? How big the
Well,
coin
I mean,
is,
this is a
what you can do.
tetragram. It's not a huge coin, so
Right.
you have little real estate, right? So you
Right.
have to work with what you have. So again, great coin, one of the most popular to collect from the Ptolemaic period because it's the beginning of Ptolemy's the first ruling over Alexandria and Egypt, and so very popular for that reason. So again, if you haven't checked out the Loy sale, check it out. I mean, 5,000 coins, you're bound to find some very inexpensive coins in there. Throw some bids and just leave them and forget about them, and whatever sticks.
It's always the best way.
It's the way I do it. So if we move on, we're going to go to the HD Roush sale, which is going to be December 8th and 9th. They have 1,454 lots. And I picked out two coins I thought were interesting here. Again, starting with the more inexpensive version, we have lot 64. If you want to bring that up, Mike.
Got it.
So that's the Abdera from Thrace. These are minted in Greece. And typical, what you'll find from this Greek city is in Thrace is you'll have griffins and Hermes. That's typically what you find on this city. This is a smaller denomination called a tetraobol. You can see it only weighs 2.87 grams, very small silver coin, but they do a lot with the little real estate they have.
Mm-hmm.
They do a lot with. Especially if you look on the reverse of the coin, you have the portrait of Hermes. You have the caduceus in the corner there, which is the symbol for Hermes. And so there's a lot going on in this coin, which is in a very tiny coin. And it's not a lot of money. And you have a lot of things. We talked about mythical creatures in one of the shows. We talked about gods. I mean, I think this coin has a lot of the varieties. And when you talk about anything smaller than a tetragram, which the smallest is going to be an obol, you have tetraobals, you have diobals, but any of the smaller denomination coins are going to be a lot less money and still have some really interesting types to go after.
So this is even smaller than a dime.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, small coin. So if we move on to the next coin, I love this type.
The alligator.
And you're going to love it too. So
I love animals.
When I'm done talking about it. So here we have Octavian. So Octavian was who later becomes Augustus, who is the first Roman emperor. But before he was Augustus, he was Octavian. And what we have here is when Octavian, when the civil wars were happening, he opposed Mark Antony and Cleopatra, who were on one side, and he convinced the Senate to actually go to war with Cleopatra in Egypt. And so there was one big battle at Actium between, I believe, 32 and 30. What was it? I think it was 32 and 30 AD, something along those lines. And here in 28 BC, after Octavian wins, he actually says, he uses the crocodile, and he says, if you read, it says Egypt captured.
Crocodile. Okay, not an alligator.
Crocodile, which was indigenous to Egypt. So
right, to the Nile,
symbol,
right?
Right. It was a symbol that was used for a lot of Egyptian motifs at the time. And so here we have Octavian, who has won the Civil War, who later goes on to be the Roman emperor, the first Roman emperor. And here he's saying that he conquered Egypt. So very famous coin, one of the most desirable coins in all of the imperatorial time period before the Roman Empire takes off, and showing the strength and the victory of Octavian before he becomes Augustus.
I have seen a lot of ancient coins in my time at HJB, and I had never seen one with a crocodile on it. Yeah. And I also have to say that this is quite the schnoz on Octavian.
Well, we did talk about size of nose.
Yes,
and power.
That's a powerful. Wow.
Yeah, that could definitely sniff up some pepper and do some serious.
Put somebody's eye out with that thing.
So so this is a very desirable coin, and a lot of people like this coin for a lot of reasons, and it's obvious. I mean, the fact that this is, after Octavian defeated Cleopatra and Mark Antony, instead of surrendering to Rome, they committed suicide. And so and we know all the great movies that were created with Liz Taylor and Cleopatra after the big civil wars, and this is the victor. In any case,
Octavian.
So that's my auction preview.
That was actually very cool.
Thank you. Yeah, I thought it was interesting as well. That's the beauty of ancient coins is that there's always something that no one's ever seen, and there's always something to talk about, always. So
and it's nowhere near as constrained as world coinage is today. There's too many mottos and things like that. It's like, this is, I don't know, it is just a completely different world for me.
It's very true. Very true. So brings us to our educational section.
Which we have a problem with because you have to give me access. Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. Have I been given access? I have been given access. Okay.
Do you have access?
It looks like it.
Here, if I haven't,
so
I can.
Let's go there. Ancient Roman coins thought to be fakes.
No.
That's not it?
Here, now I've given you access. So if you hit that link on the
hold on a second.
template.
Let me get people out of my desktop and back to the show.
It's the live show, guys.
Yeah. All right. So here we go. Boom. Roman Spintriae.
Spintria.
Okay, if you say so. Hold on a second. That doesn't work. All right, what the heck is going on here? Hold on a second. Let me get back to that. Let me see this.
Well, I see you're there.
Here. Well, I'm just trying to put it on the screen now.
Oh.
There we go.
Gotcha.
Now I got it.
Okay. So, in modern coins or in modern collecting, we have what's called exonumia, which is basically anything that's not coin related. So I guess you could kind of say this is sort of like that, because these are spintria are essentially tokens, and they weren't meant for circulation per se, but they were, and there's a lot of argument about what they were truly used for. A lot of the spintria are erotic in nature. And so most people believed there's half the people that believe that they were used in brothels, and that you would actually buy a token and then go into the brothel and then hand the token to the person who had that position that they were good at. And if you look, there's a fresco there that's from Pompeii, and so those frescoes would have been above the beds, the stone beds that the women would have been, or men probably would have been sitting in, and you'd hand the token to them supposedly and have sex, right? So But it's been argued by Buttry, who wrote a work on this in 1973, that these were not brothel tokens, but that they were gaming tokens. I'm not sure what kind of game you would play with.
Well, it's
tokens.
a different kind of game. We really don't need to get into that, but
right. There are also tokens that could have been used in the theater as well, or in the amphitheaters of some sort. And we'll show some at the end here. But
they
for
definitely
most people,
catch your interest.
Oh yeah, for sure. But they are coins, and they were not mass produced, and most of them were produced during the time of Tiberius, which is interesting. And so it's a very small time period. There are some ones that are later. I don't believe there are any in the Greek period. It has also been argued that these tokens could have been used if you went to the say you went to the baths and you needed to, essentially buy a token to place your clothes in an area, and that number would designate to the area where you leave your clothes. Now, I'm not really sure why you need a sexual imagery on the token for that, other than the fact that maybe they were having sex in the baths. But I'm going to go with the brothel. I like that idea a lot more than
it certainly seems to be a form follows function.
Yeah, and there's a lot more of the erotic ones than there are of the regular tokens. So if you go to the next slide, Mike, and you'll see, some of them, obviously it depends on, again, it's going to be how well they were struck. It's going to be the quality of the die work. And here it's really beautiful. In this case, it's two men. And so homosexuality in ancient world was very common. It was not frowned. It wasn't, no one was upset by, there was no homophobic tendencies back then. It was normal practice for older men to have sex with younger boys. That was very common. And so here it's obvious you have two men who are engaging here.
Yeah, they're going at it.
And so going at it. So if you go to the next slide, you get some very interesting positions. Obviously, maybe if this was a brothel token, maybe this woman was really good at that position. One arm up, one arm down, and
they're making a V for victory.
Sure. Oh, like on the back,
right?
The Roman numeral 5.
There you
That's
go.
Correct. I love that symmetry that you just created in my head. So,
see.
Going on, you can see, most of these are all going to be out of bronze. I think I've seen some lead ones, but mostly bronze. And so it's going to come down to the quality of the bronze and the patina and things like that. And so most of the numbers, I believe I've read that it's anywhere between Roman numeral 1 and 26. So obviously, if it is a game, there's
collect them, trade them with your friends. Is that the game?
I think there's a set number, of
trying to catch them
for
all.
whatever game. But unfortunately, there's no evidence that supports any of this. Nothing has been uncovered to say that these are gaming tokens, brothel tokens. There's really nothing that's come out or that's been discovered that can tell us one way or the other. So they're really an anomaly in a sense.
So you just never know.
Well, that's the beauty of ancient cultures, right? We don't know everything, as we'll learn later. So here, if we go to the next slide, kind of to be a bigger woman.
Sturdy.
Who's sturdy. That's right. Yeah. Who's doing fine work here. So, and you can find all kinds of varieties of these, and people do collect them. These can get costly. I don't see too many cheap ones. They used to sell for $15,000, $12,000, $20,000, but I've seen them come down in price. They're not as heavily collected as they once were, and so they're they don't come up often, but when they do come up, they're a little bit more reasonable than they were 20 years ago. So if you go to the next slide, now we're getting away from erotica. Here you have a portrait of Augustus, which makes sense because these were mostly made during the time of Tiberius. And so you have a portrait of Augustus here. So obviously not a sexual token. So what was this used for? Was it used as a gaming token? Was it used for a locker token? Was it used, as a keepsake?
Sure.
I mean, it's very difficult to know what this was.
It clearly is not linked to the Roman numeral on the back because there already was a 12 and, that had the two guys. So who knows?
Right. Who knows? And again, maybe that goes back to the gaming thing again. But again, I'm not sure why you'd have erotica unless it's an erotic game. But it just doesn't seem reasonable to me. And if you go to the last one, we have a goddess here, and you have Roman numeral 14. So again, it's very difficult to know what these represented. But what I wanted to show these because, there's the spintria, but then you also have contorniates, which we haven't gotten into. I'll get into that at some point. You have medallions. There's all kinds of things that were minted, but that were not meant for as currency, that they were keepsakes, they were gifts, things of that nature. The Constantine the Great gold medallion I just bought in auction, that was given out to high-ranking military officials, and it could have been by the emperor himself in some cases. They were gifts. And so, yes, they were gold, but they were very special things that were not mass-produced for, obviously, most gold and silver were treasury coins, but most people wouldn't have a medallion that size. It's just not something the average person would ever have in the ancient world.
So let me, just for clarity's sake, let me ask this question. So Spintriae is the plural, and now I get that now that I've seen it and I've looked at it a couple of times. But is Spintriae kind of like the term for exonumia?
No, but it has to do with tokens.
So Spintriae is just a part of exonumia. I get it. Okay, so it's a subset. That was what I was trying.
We don't really have the word exonumia in ancient numismatics.
Mm-hmm.
We just have classifications, right? So we don't have like we do in modern coins where we say it's exonumia. We just say, well, these are spintria. They're all ancient, right?
Right.
So it's just a matter of, and because they're round and they're and they not mass produced, but they were obviously when they made the dies, they made more than one, right? And so they were produced in the same way coins would have been produced.
Right.
And so for that reason, they're more than just antiquity.
Yeah. Well, my question more had to do with classification and, it's like, what is the blanket term? Because exonumia is a really big blanket term. There's all kinds of things that fit on.
I guess you could say ancient exonumia, but in our field, we don't really use exonumia.
There's just different types of exonumia, and this is one of them.
Right. But I thought it was interesting, and we're kind of getting away from the normal standard coinage, but it's important because you will see these in auction, you will see these in the market, and you got to know what they are and what they were used for. And so I think it was important to kind of bring this out into the open and discuss it with our listeners.
Yeah, it's definitely something different, something we haven't talked about or seen before.
It's true. So I have to say that I forgot to get the game part going. So
no, I'm so disappointed.
But since we talked so much in the beginning about
NGC
market, I think it's okay.
Okay,
so, but I do have a pearl. I do have an interesting pearl of wisdom tonight.
Mm-hmm. You do.
So, and the reason this came up is that I had a client actually, and what's funny is that a client sent me this article that just came out today, actually. So we're really current in this podcast. And
Happy
Mike,
Thanksgiving. Woohoo!
Right. Mike, if you go back to our where the Pearl Wisdom, underneath that, there's a link that I posted there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can you bring that up?
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that is the ancient coins.
Right.
Okay.
So my pearl of wisdom is that with ancient coins and ancient antiquity in general, Mother Earth will continue to provide new historical data. That the evidence is buried, but it continues to be dug up. And so here's a perfect example of that. And now this was found a long time ago. These coins were actually found in the 17th century, 1713, I believe, is what the article stated, and they were found in Transylvania, and they were actually found with other ancient gold coins, and this particular coin was thought to have been fake. And they've done some metal analysis, which is happening more and more these days. And now they have determined that this coin is real and that it was an actual Roman emperor, or he was a general actually, and his name was I think it's Sponsian. And so this coin is literally because of the fact that it was found with other ancient gold coins from the period, but this general was trying to get power and make himself Roman emperor because he had this army.
And I'm sure he had some victories that went along with it.
And he issued this coin, but it was Sponsian because this coin was found on what they thought was a fake coin, and now they're saying it's legit. It's kind of rewriting history a little bit, because now we're saying that this usurper or this general actually existed and that this coin is legit from that time period.
Yeah, so historically there was no record of this guy other than as being a general, and now we know him as a usurper. And so now they kind of like carbon dated the gold or something?
Yeah, what they're doing is they're now doing metal breakdowns and purity levels, and they're using that against the ancient coins that we know that are real. And if they have the same kind of makeup, then it kind of gives evidence that it's from the same time period. And also, they can do that based on how the coin was struck. They are able to come up with, if, like, for instance, we talked about the Cleopatra that was fake not long ago, and they did a metal test of that, and they found that the metal that was used was more pure than anything Cleopatra ever used and Mark Antony ever used. And so that's a pretty good determination that it's fake, because it doesn't fit into the category of the rest of the denarii issued by those two. And so if the metal doesn't make sense for the period, if the striking doesn't make sense, and they're able to prove that scientifically, they're able to do more and more of that. And I know that the ANS was shipping coins off, because I actually shipped some. Our company helped them ship some of them to a laboratory, I think in Canada, from what I remember. And they were actually drilling the coins, some of the poorer coins, and doing true metal tests of authentic coins, so they could get a schematic of what the ancient metal is supposed to be, and then going from there.
So from a scientific standpoint, this analysis that they're going to do is not going to absolutely nail down that this is where it was from, but it may exclude it from being part of what they know, and that's just as good.
No, this general supposedly was in modern day Transylvania, and the coins that this coin was found with, it was found with coins from the other Roman emperors from the period. So it was found in a hoard. It just they always thought this particular one was fake because they couldn't place it, right? And they didn't think this guy existed. But here now they've kind of decided, and I'm sure they're
and the metallurgy fits with the contemporary coins of Transylvania, and that's what I'm saying. Is it doesn't necessarily say, this actually was
not Transylvania.
I'm sorry,
not Transylvania. That's where it was found, but they were.
Oh yeah, you're right.
I mean, this one might have been a traveling mint in Transylvania, But the other coins that were found with it might have been issued in other areas, but they were just in circulation. Where this coin, there was probably so few that were actually minted that they just didn't get out.
Okay. See, I was making another assumption completely, and I'm glad you straightened me out on that.
Mm-hmm. So, so I think that's the beauty with ancient coins, is that the history is constantly changing. And, look, we even talk about evolution of man and woman and human beings.
Sure.
And we're not even sure where all those links are, right? And, we talk about the missing link and all of those things. A lot of that is just, you could be that they're hidden under plate tectonics, that they got burned up. It's really hard to say. And through science, they've been able to figure out more and more and more of that. You can believe it or not believe it. I know sometimes religion kind of,
as the technology improves, the picture becomes clearer. That's really all you can say is, over time we learn more and more. It's
true. I mean, that's true of the universe in general, right?
Yep.
If you think about just the evolution of humans in general, we see that in ancient culture. When the ancients started, they worshipped many, 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 many gods to explain all the things they didn't understand. And as time went by, they became less and less gods because they understood more and more, until we finally got to one.
Yep.
So, or three, depending on your religion,
sure.
Or multiple, depending on your religion. But obviously, as time goes by and they figure out more, it's the same idea. We figure out that we were wrong about certain things. We create technology that helps us understand what we found better, like in this situation. And so, and that kind of helps rewrite history. And so that's the kind of the fun and the beauty of ancient cultures and what Mother Earth is yet to provide to us.
And, it's like being a part of discovery. As this stuff evolves, you're on the edge of it with everybody else, and you get a chance to discover with the rest of the world.
Yeah. And, Curtis, our Roman expert, he finds new variants and legends all the time, and some of them mean something, some of them don't mean something. But the fact is that there's so much that's not known about ancient coins, really. And so when you get something that's obscure or different because it just hadn't come to the market or nobody was actually noticed it, it changes things. And so that's the beauty of ancient coins, and that's where it really differs from US coins in that regard, or anything modernly produced, because we know all the answers.
Well, because we're doing it currently. It's the stuff that you got to figure it out. It's always trial and error.
Even if it was 250 years ago, we still know because they wrote about it.
Right. But I mean, when we have to figure it out, it's all trial and error. And it's try this theory and see how this fits. And then as we learn more information, the theory evolves. And, I thought the space telescopes was a perfect analogy. Yeah. Because, as that's evolving, our complete view of the universe is changing.
It's true. It's absolutely true. And it's all really fascinating to me. And that's, I think, why ancient coins in particular are so desirable to collect, because you literally could collect your entire life and never stop. And there's really no end to it. And you can go off in all kinds of different areas. And, and we've talked about this about my dad, when somebody asked, well, aren't you bored with ancient coins? And he said, never. And they asked him why. And he said, because I'm still, after almost 60 years of doing this, I still see things I've never seen before. And so you can't say that about a lot of different coin areas.
You know what I love about coins most?
What's that?
There's no way that somebody can look at what you're collecting and say, you're doing it wrong. There's no wrong way to do it.
No, there's not. There's not. We find lots of ways to screw it up.
But that's life in general. So
that's true. That's true. So anyway, that's all I got for you, Mike.
Well, that's actually a well-packed episode. I think this was really good, and we turned things on their head just a little bit tonight and did something a little bit different. And so comment, let us know what you think, and tell us what you'd like to hear. more importantly, because
And
we want to
yeah.
do things that cater to what you guys want to hear, what you guys want to learn about. If there's a specific subject, a specific emperor, something that you want to hear, put it in the comments to the videos, or you can drop us a line. Our email addresses are underneath us.
Yeah, and please follow the show on YouTube. And I also want to give a shout out to occasionally. Last time we talked about tea from
Silver Stacker, yes,
supporters from Silver Stacker. But I wanted to give a shout out to Told in Stone. He does a very good educational series on ancient history. He's actually a PhD in ancient history. And he does an excellent job. He has I think about 300,000 followers. So he's very, very prolific, but he does a fantastic job. I've been on his show a few times and I really like what he does. And I appreciate him. So I wanted to give him a shout out.
There you go. toldinstone.com, right?
Told in Stone on YouTube is where you'll find him.
Okay. So Told in Stone. Not scone.
Golden Stone.
Yeah.
Not scone.
Not scone. That would be a cooking show, and that's different. So, yeah. So thanks
Have
for
a good
listening.
Thanksgiving, everybody.
Have a great Thanksgiving, and we will talk to you in a couple of weeks. Thanks, Aaron. Talk to you next time on the Ancient Coin Podcast with Aaron Berk.
Thanks for listening to the Ancient Coin Podcast with Aaron Berk. We'll return with another episode soon. Meantime, you can join our private group on Facebook. Just go to facebook.com and search the Groups tab for Ancient Coin Podcast Discussion Group and ask to join. There you can become part of our community, where we share and discuss ancient coins, as well as the show, the ancient coin market, auctions, or just to give our own opinions on things in order to learn together. Join Aaron and Mike again soon for the next episode of the Ancient Coin Podcast with Aaron Berk.